Yeah, well, I guess the obvious one is Tom Stewart. How do you feel about it? How big a loss? How do you feel conceptually about the concussion protocols and the fact he's going to miss the grand final that maybe he mightn't needed to have missed?
Yeah, I think any points I would make would more be observations, and I think generally in these situations you change your mind depending on what it means for you. So I'm very pro a week off before the grand final if we can sneak that in this year. But given that it's likely that we're not going to do that, then clearly it's. I mean, in some ways, in a perverse way, it's black and white. So we know, he knows. It's a shattering situation for him. And if I move forward into the game, we were under real pressure at that stage. Looked like Jack Henry might have been in doubt for the rest of the game as well. Fortunately, there was the feedback we got was there was a little bit of a nerve situation there that looked bad temporarily but came good. So that's the good news story. They're ultra confident that he will be fine to train in a couple of days. So that's the good news on the injury front. But yeah, the Stewart one's a bit hard to take right at the moment.
And the extension of that too is, and a well-worn theme, but the pre-finals bye, you guys look like you might have just been a little
rusty,
underdone, rusty. Yeah. So obviously, if you're going to have the week, you move the week to pre-grand final, you kill two birds with one stone. So I know we're sort of on the same page about this, but has it strengthened your feeling about that?
I have a view on it, but if you go all the way back, my view was probably informed by the rationale for doing it anyway, which I thought was flawed. I understand it's not optimal for the AFL to have masses of players rested for inconsequential games in the last home and away round of the year, but I just didn't think that was a good enough reason. And I think you know how strongly I feel that the club should have autonomy over this stuff. And it was in a period of time too where the AFL just couldn't find another space for a bye during the year, and then they found one overnight. But there seems to be a ground. So again, I don't want to give a strong opinion. It's more an observation that others have made that maybe if there has to be one before grand final would be better. I still go back to I think what I said 2 weeks ago. If you gave us the option, do you want to play next week, or would you prefer to have the week off? We'd take the week off. So I don't think it was, and that's sort of the way it played out tonight. But I don't think would be fair for us to kind of flip-flop on that. We looked rusty, so it was a bad idea. When again, we were happy with that preparation. It's hard work to get to the stage where you go into a prelim final in as good a shape as we did tonight. So it looked a bit rusty, really disappointing for Stewart, but proud of the way that we hung in. And I'm assuming, I didn't hear what Sam said, but I'm assuming they had some challenges with players that have had a hard few weeks. So it depends on which side of the coin you focus on. But there are pros and cons.
Chris, can we get you to wax a bit lyrical about Patrick Dangerfield?
Can I?
Can we get you to talk a bit about Patrick Dangerfield?
Yeah. We don't. I don't want to pretend that we just wrap him in cotton wool until this time of year. But he was born to play at this time of year, and I hope it continues for a long, long time.
Sam Mitchell wants him to retire.
Yeah, well, I wanted Sam to retire as well, so I get where he's coming from. He wasn't the only one, but when we're under pressure, I just thought he was so influential. And like early on, the game was clearly going their way. I think everything that they would have wanted to happen was happening, with a few exceptions, but not many. And then when we sort of looked like we'd lost two players, it was okay. This is going to be a real juggle from here. And I thought our team in the box adjusted to those things well, but it can be a bit overrated, that stuff, because you can do a good job. It's the players that still have to execute. And like a little shout out to Jai Clark, who's been on the edge of our team for a long time, and to come in and play the way he did in a prelim final, I don't really believe in that idea that it's the one performance is the making of players. But hopefully we'll look back and say that was a bit of a inflection point for Jai.
I know historically you struggle to rate players' games, but I mean, would that be one of the best you've ever seen, given what was at stake, one of the best you've ever seen Patrick play?
Oh, he's played some good ones. Yeah. And you're right, likely you will have a better feel for his individual performance than I do right at the moment, because we tend not to watch the game that way, but it felt like, it did 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago, when it's like, okay, something's not going right, how do we get Patrick in the spots where he can influence?
Is it amazing? I mean, he's 35, it's his 359th game to be performing that well, so deep into his career. And more broadly, so many players across the league, it's just pretty incredible, isn't it? It's so late to
Yeah, I think it is. I'm not sure exactly why. I've got a few ideas that are likely to be right, but they don't represent the whole picture. And you can do a whole lot of things with older players to help them still perform, well into their 30s. But you still got to have that will and that. I don't even know how to describe it other than that, drive that Patrick has. It's very, very few have it.
You've done this a few times now. Stewart aside, is this as well prepared and well placed as you've been going into a grand final?
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, I find it a little bit hard to prepare it or compare previous eras, but we do sort of shift things regularly in season. We're big believers that the game changes, and we want to change either with it or hopefully a little bit in front of it. But we've been pretty stable for a long time, and in part that's because we've brought some young players in. Connor O'Sullivan's one that comes to mind. Lawson Humphries has been huge for us, even though he played a prelim final last year. And those guys just have become mainstays. There are others as well, but they became mainstays really early on in our season, which sort of helps you have stability, because it's a bit like everyone in the world, even in business, preaches stability, but there's no point keep going with the same thing if it's not working. So we just feel like it's been working for a decent period of time now, so that gives us confidence that we're going to be in pretty good shape to give it a real shake next week.
And also, I mean, one thing occurs to me, like from 3 years ago when you won it, and the game's shifted, but there's a more sort of flexibility and versatility, and like tonight you lose Stewart, Guthrie sort of steps up, the kids you're talking about, sort of like, feels like there's more strings to your bow, is it something?
Yeah, I think that's true, and there's a little bit of a nod to our list management team, who have done a terrific job there. But again, if your strategy is, hey, we want to be really flexible and move our team around, but you're moving good players away from their best position, that's generally a bad idea. We just think when we move our players, they're going from a good spot to another good spot. So they've got to have the capability to do that. But again, I would assume that in 12 months' time we'll be slightly different, and we'll have to approach it in a way that kind of suits who we've got. But it's not overnight. But I don't know, was it 22 we were an old team, and it's kind of like our influential players, we're still talking about Dangerfield, and if Stewart had a play, we'd still be talking about him as well. Blitzarves is a marvel. But it's not as if they need to dominate for us to win anymore, which is, again, the list management team should take a lot of the plaudits for that.
Speaking of blitzarves, you had the option to bring in Reece Stanley, opted against it. Given the midfield dominance, are you happy with that mix?
I think I said a couple of weeks ago that if Reece is fit, we'd play him. There's obviously some nuance there, and there's medically available. Well, I mean, the way we think about it now is like, could play is not enough. You have to answer the should play question. But the fact that he's gone so well leaves him in really good shape for next week. So that's probably a little bit of a pointer to the way I'm thinking.
Is he the natural,
and I'm one of a group. But
is he the natural first man up, given you can slide blitzarves back to somewhat cover for Stewart?
It's an option for us. It's and that's sort of part of the planning as well. Like you can't, like even early in the game, you can sit down and go through all the potential scenarios. But you tend not to get down to what if we lose our two most important defenders in the first quarter. That's kind of like, well, okay, all bets are off a bit. But yeah, having a few guys, I think we've had some questions over the last couple of years about our rucks, and we tend to not talk about the way we sort of think about things too much. Suffice to say, we're pretty comfortable with the way we can manage that sort of ruck key position issue.
Just more broadly, I guess it's been regarded as probably the tightest, strongest top 8 in history, and you've emerged from it. You're in the grand final. I know you've obviously got much bigger things to play for, but given how your season ended last year, the response this year to go a step further at least, did you sort of take a little bit of a moment to just really appreciate what a pretty good achievement that is so far?
Yeah, even going in tonight, I was proud of the season we've had so far, because I think there was an era, but it was way back, and I think this is potentially one of the things that people get wrong. If you sort of think about the way footy was 30 years ago, like there were, the good teams that have to have a bad season not to be in the top 4. It's like now you can have a really good season and miss the finals. So we've never been more respectful of the competition. But one of the other side of the coin of a really even comp, especially the top 9, is that at least we don't think anyone's much better than us. And that's sort of the approach we've taken all year. We'd have to play our best to beat them. But if we do play our best, it's going to be hard for another team to get on top of us.
Chris, from a coaching perspective, must have been so delighted just to be able to turn the tables, particularly in that second term when the pressure was really on. But it was the ability to contest in clearance and then the stoppages to score 11 goals, 6. That's something that really must give you great growth going into next week.
Yeah, the turnaround is a little bit hard for us to kind of identify in the moment, because it was a series of things that sort of all culminated in us getting some control, and they are potentially, like, when they're hot, they're as hot as anyone. You only had to watch last week, the start of the game, and when they're up and about, like, shifting that momentum is really difficult. It just seemed to be a bit of a compounding thing for us that they had all those things going, and then we lost a couple of key backs as well. And we know how good they are in and around the stoppages, and they had the game played their way early. So there were a few things around the ball I thought, again, shouldn't really individualise, but Tom Atkins was huge in there. Thought Bailey was really influential, and the longer the game went on, the better Max Holmes got, sort of in particular. So it's sort of the modern game a little bit. Like if you think that you're just such a good team that you'll have it your way the whole game, you're being really naive. So in some parts, it's a matter of, okay, how do we assess as quickly as possible this is not going our way and hang in, but when you've got the mo, you've got to put the foot down.
The Brownlow coming up, Bailey Smith's chances, how do you rate his chances?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I put no time into this. But what I will say is we do vote on the Coaches Award, and he polled pretty well there. Even the coaches think it's a midfielders award, so he must be in with a chance.
Chris, just on Mark O'Connor's game, and how do you see his tagging job on Josh Weddle? Did a really good job in the first half.
Yeah, it was a really interesting. I thought it was a really interesting game, and again, I tend not to, even after the fact, talk too much about the way we think about the opposition and the way we played. But I'm sure even when you guys review the game, there'll be some things that you miss that we miss in the moment as well. There's a lot happening, and that's a little bit of a nod to the Hawks as well. Like it's not as if you just sit there and roll it out. There's things happening all over, and it definitely kept us on our toes. I hope they feel the same way.
Does the group sit down together tomorrow and watch the game, and do you have a preference on whether you want to play Brisbane?
Oh, definitely Brisbane. Yeah, no, that's no. No, we tend not to do that as a group. We're a bit driven by what the individuals want. some guys are real footy heads and they'll watch it as much as I will. There might be some left-footed key forwards who probably won't watch any of it, and that's fine.
Chris, can I get you to talk about Jai Clark a little bit more?
Yeah.
What you saw in him to bring him back in so late in the season and then trust him in finals as well.
Yeah, so I suspect that a lot of people think this is a platitude, but we really rate our training, and it's not ideal. I don't have the answer. I'm not sure there's a solution, but the way the VFL fixture works, you can go long periods of time with guys not playing as much footy as you'd like them to. But because we knew that was an issue, we place even more of a priority on our training and doing everything we can to have them ready if the spot becomes available. And he just trained the house down. And it was some of our assistants in particular, you know, I'll shout out Stephen King. He's just like, geez, if we could find a way to play this guy, he'd really help us. And when the chance popped up a couple of weeks ago, you know, he got a couple of minutes, didn't he? But tonight, when he got his chance early, he played, without being overconfident about it, he played the way we thought he'd play, which is a high praise indeed, because he, you know, that's a big ask of the amount of footy that he's had in the last, it's probably 6 weeks, Mac. So, but again, like, his training, the guys that sort of work with him, Nigel Lappin does a great job with those guys in particular. But yeah, this is the old, he trained his way into the team situation.
I spoke to him post-match and he didn't feel like he was guaranteed of playing next week. Can you guarantee his spot, Chris?
Yeah, but Tom Atkins says that as well. And that's sort of what I love about some of our guys. Like that attitude, you know, I think Paddy and Jez think they're safe in the team, but the other guys, they kind of play, I can't, because I have a different view. I don't like players being on edge. I like them feeling secure when it's possible. So we'll work through that as quickly as we can with Jai, but we were really impressed with his game tonight.
So it's a disappointment of Tom Stewart, but on the flip side, you got Max Holmes and who missed out 2022, and Sam Taccone missed out 2023 in the finals. I mean, how pleased are you to see them get a grand final shot?
Yeah, I mean the game it can be really cruel at times. But again, I think it's a bit reflective of what we've tried to do this year, and the players have really executed well. It's the same in life. Like, things will go against you at times, and if you wallow in your own self-pity and you're too quick to identify all the things that aren't fair in the world, and there are a lot, then it's hard to fight your way back. And I just really admire the way Max is. I mean, he's become one of the premier players in the competition, in my opinion. You know, it would have been easy for him to sort of spend a lot of time thinking, "Why was me?" But he hasn't done that at all. So yeah, it's nice for him.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank you.
you.